Hey guys, it's Fletch. Welcome back to Fletch Does It. Today we're going to be looking at this Harbor Freight Central Pneumatic 29-gallon air compressor, and we're going to have to do a repair on it. And it's not really going to be a review, but I'm going to explain why you might want to get this older model that's on clearance right now versus getting one of the newer models. So stick around. We'll be right back. Okay guys, so what happened here is my pressure switch has failed in some way because the compressor was running, I guess, for a couple of days straight. Just with my health situation, I don't get outside a lot at times. And one of the kids told me that, hey Dad, it seems like that your new compressor in the garage has been running for like a couple of days now. And so I was like, oh crap. So I immediately ran out here and tried to turn it off, with the switch here, and it wouldn't turn off. And it was just stuck on. And so the only recourse I had at that point was to unplug it from the wall there. And yeah. So the good news is that the pressure switch was still in stock and available at Harbor Freight. It was only $12, and that included shipping. So good job there, Harbor Freight. A lot of places they don't charge a huge markup on their parts, but then they're going to nail you for shipping and handling. But Harbor Freight took care of this, and so I was very thankful for that. We're going to be replacing this pressure switch, and I'm going to explain to you why I opted to go this route with this older model versus one of the newer ones. So if you'll bear with me a minute here, we are going to get a screwdriver. It looks like we need to, there's one retaining screw that holds the cover on this pressure switch. All right, let's try this smaller one here. See if we have any better luck. There we go. All right. Like I said, this is just a retaining screw for the cap or the lid that goes on here that protects you from shocking yourself. Oh, okay. I was just getting hung up on the pressure gauge. So let's see here. Looks like this, what it come with stock is the LeFou, or I guess that's what I call that, pressure switch, and there's the model number and everything. And like I said, you can buy these from Harbor Freight. If you guys aren't aware of how to safely and successfully do work like this, if you've never done it before, when you're just changing out parts and there's no troubleshooting involved, it's really not that hard, guys. Basically, just take a picture of it before you take it apart, and then when you put it back together, just put it back together the way that it was in the picture, right? So it's really not that big a deal. And so we're just gonna, since I got the camera running, I know where everything goes. All right. And of course we unplugged it before we started. That's just kind of common sense, right? But unfortunately, common sense ain't so common anymore, right? All right, so while we're working on this, guys, I'll kind of fill in the time with my little mini critique of this unit, as well as why I opted for this unit versus a different one. The first is the new compressors. The air compressor, the compressor motor, this part here, the compressor motor on those is still a fairly new technology versus this old school design here. And so just for me personally, I don't have a ton of faith in that. And yeah, it's my personality, the type of person that I am is I would rather go with the sure thing, you know, the tried and true thing for the most part versus something else. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't buy or try one of the newer ones if it was, you know, fairly inexpensive. I've got a review coming up for you guys on the new lightweight 2-gallon ultra quiet that Harbor Freight has got out. And so what I did is I just took out the electrical screws. This is the pigtail going to the wall, and then this is the wire leading to the motor that kicks it on when there's a call for air from the pressure switch. All right, so but anyways, getting back to, you know, why this older style. The reason why I personally chose this older style was because a motor like this can still be purchased about anywhere, and in my opinion, it will be, you know, for the foreseeable future. There's plenty of applications of things like this where this type of motor is needed, and the same thing with the compressor motor here. And even if this thing craps out, I can replace the motor easily. I can replace the compressor. I can replace the compressor motor here, engine, whatever you want to call it, as well. Now, having said that, you know, do the newer ones run quieter? Yeah, they do. But this is out in the garage, and I've got it right by the door. And the reason why I got it right by the door is so if I'm doing work on a vehicle or something, you know, the car can be right there, and I've got easy access to it. And I also set this up. I ran a dedicated line out here so that when this kicks on, it doesn't trip. And then I also have 220 here. So if I ever wanted to, you know, step up to a 220 compressor, I could do that. As well as I can set my welding unit here, and I've got, you know, 220 for it as well. And I don't think anytime soon I'm going to have a electric vehicle. So, but I suppose if someday I wanted to do that, that would be available to me as well, because it's right there. So, all right, what we're trying to figure out here is what we're going to have to do to get this to pop out of there so we can get the pigtail out of there. And there's usually some type of a pressure detent or something that you got to push in that will allow it to go in and out. Sometimes it's just turning it in the right direction, and other times it's you got to turn it, swivel it, turn it in the right alignment, and then the whole thing will just pop out. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, is how this works so I can get it out without tearing it up. So all right, I think I'm going to go get the new replacement part and see what we need to do. I'm walking across the garage right now, if you haven't figured that out. All right, and as you guys can see here, and yes, I'm closing up or covering up my individual information here, but you can see, you know, $12.44, no shipping. So I always give it to you guys straight. And by the way, you know, I paid full price for this unit. Harbor Freight didn't send it to me or anything, which is kind of odd. Back when I first moved here, I tried out Harbor Freight's new field and brush mower, and the product just wasn't really ready to be released yet, honestly. And you know, so I explained what happened. Harbor Freight contacted me and everything, and I told them, hey, you know, if you ever come out with another one, I'd be happy to review it for you and give you honest feedback. Never heard from them again. And then on top of that, that video is still up on my channel, and because people were watching it, right? So no need to take it down. Harbor Freight, if you're watching this, is why haven't you re-released that product? I mean, it's one of the most watched videos on my channel, so clearly there is a customer base that would be interested in a product like that from you. You know, just the version that you had turned out earlier was a bit problematic, shall we say. And it needed some more refinement and fine-tuning, so to speak. So anyways, let's see here what we need to do. If there's any tells that we can get from this new pressure switch, that'll tell us what we need to do so that we can get this to work. All right, so we got the cover off. And yeah, I don't see anything here that's going to tell me how the pigtail releases out of there. Interesting. But while I'm looking at this, another thing I was going to tell you guys about, for me personally, I like having my air compressor next to the door because then I have farther reach outside of it rather than burying it in the back corner of the garage. And then, you know, you got the added expense of piping it everywhere. You know, later, at a later time, I may well want to revisit that and move it, but right now that's not really an option for me, so I'm not going to do that. But, you know, at some point. All right, let's see here. I'm going to cut this off for the time being until I figure out what I need to do. So here on the pigtail side, the wall outlet cord side, as you can see, this is just a simple compression fitting where it slides in there. You can move back and forth, and then it had a little retainer back here. It looks like that broke off, and I had to use some slide lock pliers to get it out. But as you can see, we got it out, and it's pretty simple. You got a ground, your positive and your negative, pretty basic stuff, or neutral, whatever you want to call it. I'm not an electrician, don't claim to be. And it looks like the side that goes to the motor looks like it's pretty much the same thing. So we just got to figure out which way we got to turn this so that we can get it to release as well. Looks like this way will work. Just give her the old squeezeroo and pop it out. Yep, just like that. So as you can see, you know, that's what it looks like when it's still on there. So I'll just leave that in place for when I put it back on. So it's already there and in place. And it looks like the next thing I need to do is I need to take the oh shoot. I can't think of what the technical name for this is off the top of my head, but what it does is it releases the pressure off of the head so that the compressor motor can start easier. And so when you turn it off, you'll hear a little blow off coming through here. Blow off valve maybe, I don't know what the technical term is, but that's what it does. So we got to do that, and then we got to start taking apart the things that are on here and that connect to the pressure switch. And on this design, basically everything is coming off the pressure switch on this particular unit. As you can see here, this is the new piece. So there's your stem that holds it up. Your emergency blow-off valve is here. The air going out for use is here. And then this is your pressure gauge that you have right here. All right, so this happens to be, oh, no, that ain't right. And I thought, well, I thought that this was a 10 millimeter because I adjusted it the other day checking for leaks, and it's not. But that reminded me of this product that I bought. And you can get it to Harbor Freight now, I think, for about 15 or 16 bucks. Again, you know, this is all stuff I paid for myself. But this is replacements for all of your 10 millimeter stuff. And if you've ever done mechanicking or you enjoy working on your own cars and, you know, puttering around in your workshop, whatever, you know about the curse of the 10 millimeter, right? All right, I gotta get the right size wrench for that. Looks like it's a 12 instead of a 10. This is a compression ferruled fitting, and so these things are a little finicky to start with. Yeah, it was on my particular one, it was a 13. Old school Craftsman. And so when you take this off, you got to be real careful. There's a ferrule in there, compression ferrule, that actually makes your connection work. And you know, most of the stuff you can bend it out of the way just a little bit so that you can get to the piece you're working on. Let's see here. This is a 15. Oh, that looks like it's a 14. All right, so it looks like we're going to have to take off this gauge here, because otherwise our pressure adjustment valve won't turn because there's not enough clearance. So, and if you guys didn't know, you're not supposed to use Teflon tape on these. You're supposed to use something like this, the paste. And, you know, everyone's got their own favorite consistency, brand, whatever. That's just what was available when I went to the hardware store, so that's what I got. I always try to, as best I can anyways, I always try to support local businesses when and where I can. You know, that doesn't mean that I don't buy stuff off of Amazon, because I surely do. But having said that, if a local business will give me a competitive price for the same thing, I would rather buy it from them. And I have and do that as well. But sometimes, you know, that's just not feasible in the, you know, the real world that we all live in. And unfortunately, you also run into the thing in small towns where, you know, sometimes the owners of local small stores are, you know, good, honorable people that are just trying to eke out a living like everyone else. And, you know, other times, in my opinion, you know, they kind of, in my opinion, they kind of think and kind of know that they got you over a barrel. And so, you know, they're going to charge you pretty much whatever they figure they can get away with, versus, you know, what it might actually be required. All right, that's not 12. All right, this is 14 as well. So we'll take it off next. So right now, all we're doing, we're just taking all of the stuff that connected to the pressure switch, and, you know, this has definitely got some thread goobers on it, but we will, you know, I'm not gonna do all this on camera, but so all I'm going to do next is this just spins, and there's a stem on the bottom. I'll show that when I take it off. All right, so here's the setup on this. As you can see, there's a stem coming out and the nut here, and this is flanged, and then on top of there's two of these rubber washers, and so we'll carefully set those aside so we don't lose those. But next we need to take this stem out so that we can put the stem here back into the new pressure valve. All right, so here's what I learned going through this process. If you look at, here's the old pressure switch, and that was, get that out of the way. This nipple here It screws in right here. But what I didn't notice that would have made this a little bit easier is that there's a flat spot on each side, and that looks like it's probably a 12 millimeter or something, and you can just get a wrench on there. The angle that it was at when I started trying to get it out, and that was in there super tight, kind of buggered it up just a little bit with a pair of slip jaw pliers, but you know, I got it out easily enough. But yeah, anyway, so you guys will know if you're trying to do this repair yourself at home or in the future. Actually, let's see if we know what size that is. Yeah, I think it's a 12. Yeah, it's 12. All right, and I just kicked the camera, so let's make sure we're still lined up and in focus properly. All right, so now we got to put the old pressure switch down out of the way. So here's our new pressure switch. So the first thing we got to do is we got to feed this back in here so that we can put it back here, and this is where the air comes out of the compressor. So the first thing we got to do is we got to put thread dope on there, or thread sealant, whatever you like to call it. A lot of guys call it pipe dope. Of course, while I was working on it, I accidentally bumped the compressor and it fell off onto the ground. And it's winter right now, and this stuff this stuff is just really thick right now. So let's see here, we'll set that back in there. And we're just going to put a little bit of pipe dope on there. This stuff's so hard, I don't know that it's really even going to be worth trying to use the brush on that, so I'm just going to spread it on there with my fingers. But I'm paying careful attention that I don't get any of it down inside there. So we'll set that down. We need to get some paper towel. Clean up a little. All right. So we got our pressure switch. Here's our nipple with the nut on the end of it. We'll get our 12 millimeter wrench. Actually, that's a little loose. That might actually be an 11 or maybe even a 10. I doubt it's a 10. Well, it is a 10. Okay. It's actually 10, guys. So, man, this thing was in here good. When I was trying to get it out, I had to lock this in my lock it in my vise in order to. All right, so next this is the proper orientation. So the next is we need to put this back on, and so we need to take our rubber gaskets, slide, well, let's see, let's do this. Let's put these in here so that's all lined up, and hopefully the threads will kind of hold that in place. I think, well, maybe not, but I think if I just wiggle it around a little bit, jostle it back and forth as I'm threading it on, that those, there we go. those pieces will lay flat and seat on there for us. Oh, probably blocking the camera. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we got that on. And I don't know what size the nut on this is, where it goes into the tank. I had to use an adjustable wrench because I didn't have a wrench that was that big. Yeah, a little persuasion there, right? Getting it to go where I want it. So it's lined up all nice and straight. And when you got a sealing washer like that somewhere, you don't want to over tighten it, because if you completely crush it, then it doesn't work right. So something to keep in mind. And so basically kind of what you want to do is just get it started and get it somewhat tight. And then also another thing, if you didn't know, on when you're doing a compression fitting that has a ferrule on it, like this, I can get it to pop out for you. Yeah, maybe I can get the old one too. Set that up there just for a sec. See if we can get the old one to slide off. Well, they've got boogers in there of some kind. All right, well, scratch that. I'm just going to use the old setting. And I will just have to make a mental note of it to keep an eye on this. And the way that you keep an eye on it, so to speak, is I need the 14. The way that you keep an eye on it is you spray it with soapy water. So I have like a spray bottle that I use. I keep in the garage all the time. It has soapy water in it. I use it to fix flat tires if I'm putting a plug in a tire. And yeah, all right. So there is that. And as we talked about before, when you're putting these back in, it's just a compression fit. So you got to use a pair of lockjaw pliers to squeeze the inside part of it, and then it'll pop out. When you want to put it back in, you just push it in and it goes into place and stays there. So we got to take out the grounding screws because they're underneath everything else. So we want to take care of that first, because it'll be a huge pain in the butt to try to do that after the fact. And this also has lock washer that's on there. So put that on. And let's see here. And if you guys didn't know this too, if you look at a lead like this, you see how it's got a flat side and then the other side is not. When you hook up something like this, you want to make sure that you twist your wire so that the flat side is positioned down. And I know for a lot of you seasoned guys, you might be going, yeah, duh, Fletch, everybody knows that. No, not everybody knows that. And not only that, but you know, there's a lot of people who have never done a job before that go to YouTube to watch a video on how to do something. And so, and I'm one of those people. And I really appreciate it when people take the time to explain, you know, those extra helpful steps like that. So if you're wondering why when you're watching my videos, if I over explain things, that's why. Because you know, if you already knew how to do this, a lot of you guys out there, if you already knew how to do this, you wouldn't be watching my video to begin with, because you already know how to do it. So let's see here. So basically the way this works, guys, is this just slides over. This slides down inside of there, and it makes a compression fitting, basically, is the gist of it. I gotta get this in the right place. There we go. I'm gonna feed our wires from the pigtail through there now. And like we talked about, you just push it in. And yeah, she's in there good and solid now. So we just got to redo the wiring the way it was to begin with. And the same thing, we want to do the ground wire first because it's down at the bottom. We don't want to have to work around everything to get to it. All right, here's a helpful little hint for you guys. If you look, let's see, I'm standing behind a camera right now trying to zoom this in for you so you can see. I don't know if it's going to focus or not, but you see in this green wire right here how I ran the there's a screw, there's a lock washer, and then there's the eyelet, and I ran the screw through the eyelet. So now when I get ready to put that in, all I have to do is turn it over like this, put my screwdriver in it, and then I can guide everything to the right hole, and it just makes everything so much easier. There we go. First try. Old timer taught me that once, and hopefully somebody's gained value from that. And if you have, hit the like button, right? I know, guys, you hear content creators always talk about that, but you know, there is a lot of truth to that, guys. If you want to help and support content creators that you watch regularly and you like, one of the best things you can do to help them is to like their content. And like the content means hit the like button, in case that wasn't clear enough, or someone's newer, they may not understand that concept. Yeah. Hitting and using the like button is a fundamental part of supporting a content creator on YouTube. Yeah, I'm sure some of you have probably since noticed that I should have done the bottom one first. And so, yeah, guys, I just show you like it is. I'm not one of those guys that thinks he always has to look perfect on camera. And so I never show you any of my mess ups or anything like that. I only show you the finished project when I'm done, right? No. Just like I was telling you before, the reason why you do the grounds on these first is because they're underneath everything. And, you know, it's the same thing with the wires here. And like I was talking about before, I went back and looked at the video to see how the wiring on this was. And I took it off to make sure that I'm putting it back, on the right way. All right, so we've got That's off. And forward is auto. Okay. Well, we can't do anything else until I get the blow-off valve and the pressure manifold on here and the tank capacity gauge on there. So, guys, this is real simple. All right, you're just taking something like this, cleaning up the threads on it a little bit, putting some fresh pipe dope on there and screwing it back in. So there's really not a whole lot to that. So once I've completed that, I'll bring you back. All right, guys, so real quick, you know, like we were talking about, just put the pipe dope on, making special attention not to get any of the pipe dope in there. And you don't want to use a Teflon tape, because if the Teflon tape starts to break down or whatever, it could end up going into your system and, you know, really buggering something up by little pieces of that tape getting hung up in, you know, anywhere in your system, and or including your, you know, air powered or pneumatic power tools. And so 14 millimeter, and we're gonna put this back on. Pretty simple. And if you guys are new to this and you didn't know, when you're using a product like this, the pipe dope, you want to make sure that you want to make sure that get the right angle on that, get it to go in. Oh my gosh, this is kind of a comedy of errors here. I need to get another turn on it. And if you guys have never done work like this before, it can definitely be a little tedious at times, because it's like sometimes you feel like as soon as you get one leak stopped, you've created another. Because you're putting pressure on it in different places and whatnot, and sometimes it becomes fairly problematic. And so there we go. We're not going to tighten that anymore. And what I was starting to say earlier is that when you're using pipe dope like this, you want to let it set up before you pressurize it. And I don't know if this one actually says on the directions or not. Let's see here. No, this one doesn't say it on there, but you know, a lot of seasoned people that do a lot of work like this will tell you that you want to make sure that you do that. And so here's our overpressure blow-off valve. And it does exactly what it sounds like it does. If the system overpressurizes itself for any reason, this blow-off valve opens up and it lets all the pressure out to keep your system from basically blowing up, right? And it's only about 50 degrees out right now, and last night it was in the 30s, so yeah, this stuff is a little thick right now, which is fine. It is what it is. You know, just turn it on there with your fingers, making sure you keep it away from the inside. But this stuff is supposed to be rated, guys, that even if you did get some of it in there, it won't hurt any of your seals or valves or stuff like that, supposedly. At least that's what it says on the container, right? But as many of you probably know, you can't always trust that, right? Kind of take that with a grain of salt, whether it's good or bad, right? Because companies nowadays are really good at doing CYA stuff rather than, well, let's just say there's several different ways that something can be explained. and at times they tend to err on the side of caution, shall we say, and sometimes excessively err on the side of caution. So yeah, for whatever it's worth. So we're using our what is it, 14 millimeter wrench here. And guys, you know, your even if you have the 29-gallon Harbor Freight air compressor, yours may be a little different because you know, these are made by contract for Harbor Freight from several different manufacturers. And so while yours may be basically the same thing as mine, it may not be actually the same thing as mine, if that makes any sense. And hopefully it does. Clean the pipe dope off my wrench. All right, so now we need to put our air pressure manifold back on. And if you guys didn't know, one thing that you definitely want to be cognizant of and aware of is that a real basic safety precaution that you want to do is put a simple air valve on here. And this one here happens to be a kobalt, but Harbor Freight sells these as well. And the reason for that is because when you're done, you want to turn off your air supply here so that your hose isn't charged all the time. And or, you know, if you close it off here, then you don't have to worry about this leaking. And you know, and I've heard lots of different old timers have different opinions on. And the reason why I keep saying old timers, guys, is because if you're not learning from older people, you are missing out. You really are. I know that even when I was in my early 20s, late teens, I would go and visit old folks' homes and different things like that, and you know, just get to know people, visit with them, because they can teach you a lot. There's lots of stuff that they know how to do in a certain way that people nowadays just don't know. And so don't take them for granted. There's lots that they can teach you. All right, so we're just going to do the same thing here again. Pipe dope. No, I'm just kidding. This stuff is so thick right now because it's cold. Yours probably won't be like mine because you're probably not doing yours in the middle of winter. Well, January. I don't know if that's technically the middle of winter or not, but definitely winter either way, right? All right, so we got it on there and just cleaned up the stuff I got inside. And I'm definitely of the school of thought that you want to clean as you go. That's just good advice for life in general, right? Whether you're cooking in the kitchen or you know, whatever it is that you're doing, clean as you go, and it will keep you from having an overwhelming mess when you're done. Especially when you're working with pipe dope and stuff like that, guys. Because yeah, it can be a real headache, a real nightmare trying to get stuff to get clean and stay clean if you don't keep with it while you're doing it. And it can definitely become an issue. You just stay on top of it as you're going. It's not an overwhelming task when you're done. All right, let's give this another quarter turn here. All right. Like I said, guys, but before I turn this on or pressurize the system, I'm going to let my pipe dope set up. So I will bring you guys back at a later time. So you can see it blow up when I turn it back on. Nah, just joking. So that you can see that she works just fine. And like I said, guys, a lot of this stuff where you're just changing out parts, there's no troubleshooting involved. You really don't need to be an electrician or a quote-unquote master mechanic or anything like that. You just need to follow the pattern that was already there, right? Take a picture of it, see where everything's at, and then when it's time to put the new part in, you just do it in reverse order. And especially if you're just doing the work for yourself, guys, you don't need to have expensive diagnostic tools and stuff like that. But that also separates the difference between a very good mechanic and like a shade tree mechanic or a backyard mechanic, in that in my generation, guys, we call them parts changers, right? They didn't know how to diagnose anything. They would just start replacing parts. And there's a time, in my opinion, there's a time and place for that, just replacing parts. And also, there's also a time and place for having the proper equipment and properly trained person to be able to do that for you if and when that time ever comes. So we've got everything back on and everything is set. So we are going to let our pipe dope set up, and I'll bring you back and we'll see if she blows up.